Brilliant. So yeah, thank you for having us on the call today. I'm here to talk to you about the GLA London Community Resilience Toolkit that we're working on. It's a Groundwork and GLA partnership project. So meeting the team, there's a few of us on the call today. So you've got myself, Alice Moorcroft Hughes, Senior Project Officer at Groundwork South. We've got Mike Anthony on the call, Programme Delivery Manager at Groundwork South, and then we've got Molly Sweeney, Community Programme Manager, Groundwork London. And for those of you who may or may not know, Groundwork is a federation of charities that supports the practical action to develop a fair and green future where people, places, and nature can thrive. And this, as said, is a collaboration project across two Groundwork trusts, Groundwork London and Groundwork South. And some of you may be familiar with our Groundwork South programme, Communities Prepared, as well. So just giving you a bit of context and sort of the brief for the project. We know that climate challenges and emergencies are likely to increase in the future for London, specifically sort of floods and heat waves. And so we're creating a toolkit that will support the development of community resilience. The toolkit will bring together practical guidance, support, templates for communities in an accessible and digestible way, and it will be completed in the summer of 2024. And it's really designed to support the work that's already taking place, but to sort of help bring that all together, sort of to work towards developing that community resilience across London. And we want to really make sure that the toolkit is right for you and right for the communities that you work with. So it'd be great to get your insights and inputs on sort of how we can make sure that it sort of meets your needs and incorporate those as we develop them. But we'll sort of touch on that in a bit more detail later in the presentation. So who's the toolkit for? We really want this toolkit to be useful for all London communities and to be able to support the wide range of groups, activities and focuses that already exist. And so it's really important that we reach all of the diverse range of community, voluntary, faith and social equality groups to ensure that we're including and representing the whole of London. And we'll touch on kind of, as said, how you can get involved a little bit later on. In terms of sort of how we're developing the toolkit, we really want to sort of be guided by a set of principles that sort of really make sure that we're laddering back to that purpose and laddering back to the audience that we want to develop the toolkit for. So as said, it's going to be an information and sort of guidance focused toolkit, which will really be for the communities of London. We're aiming to kind of have this toolkit support with bridging the gap that that can exist between sort of the statutory and the voluntary sector. And we really want it to be a practical document with sort of templates, scenarios, action plans, and sort of support that will mean that the toolkit can be used in a practical and tangible way. With that in mind, we don't want it to be too long. We know that sort of sometimes these documents can kind of be numerous pages and can be quite sort of large and overwhelming to sort of absorb and actually use. So we're really keeping that in mind as we sort of develop the content, but also think about the layout. We really want it to be an active document that you can dip in and out of. You can find what you need easily. You can kind of find your focus areas, or you can kind of read it start to finish as well and really get the full breadth. And we're really aware of making the toolkit accessible, specifically around language, for example. We know from sort of partnership calls such as this and kind of wider VCSEP conversations that language in the sector can often be a bit of a barrier, particularly around kind of the jargon that can be used. So that's something that we're really kind of keeping front and center as we develop the content and kind of look at sort of the language that we're using. And then similarly, kind of really wanting to make sure that the language that we use is the right kind of language for sort of what we're trying to achieve from a community resilience point of view. So it's really going to be looking at the content through a strength and asset-based perspective, not looking at kind of vulnerabilities or kind of the sort of talking about kind of vulnerable sort of people in that way. And we really want it to be based on community need and insight by testing and learning during the development, which is hopefully where we'll be able to get some communication, some community engagement. But yeah. We're still very much in the early development stages of the content, but we just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the types of topics that we're likely to include. So we'll have sort of a light touch introduction. We won't be sort of spending too long on that, just sort of so we can get straight into the content. Be giving a bit of a climate overview, sort of setting the context, and sort of helping kind of unpack what it is that we actually mean by community resilience. Again, light touch, just so we're all on the same page as we're starting to use this toolkit. And then sort of topics that will be included, we'll be looking at community mapping, which is sort of looking at the needs, the strengths, the challenges, the risks and resources that already kind of exist within communities, and sort of how best to both understand them, but also then utilize them. And then sort of also looking at community emergency planning. How can a community plan for an emergency? Looking at developing community plans, sort of testing plans, and then sort of making sure that you've thought about communication methods and then how that plan then activates. I'll be looking at community emergency volunteering, the different types of volunteers, the roles and responsibilities, best practice on recruiting and managing volunteers, and sort of ultimately working towards that developing community resilience. And then also including the role of resilient spaces. There's lots of different types of resilient spaces that we know exist, whether it be warm or cool spaces. We've obviously got rest centres, community resilience hubs as well. So it's about kind of bringing together what's sort of looking at what's available, how they're used, and how they can kind of the benefits that they can bring as well. And then within the toolkit as well, we'll be looking at kind of the different skills and capabilities that help towards building community resilience, looking at kind of hard as well as soft skills as well. So looking at kind of communication methods, engagement methods, relationship building, all of those sort of different skills that kind of work together to build community resilience. And as well, throughout the toolkit, we'll really be making sure that we're sort of touching on climate hazards such as flood and heat waves, incorporating templates and activities, so we can really kind of have that tangible, practical application, as well as making sure that we're always kind of considering equity, diversity and inclusion considerations as well throughout the toolkit. So that's very much kind of where we currently are in terms of the content and sort of the types of things we think we need to include and will be including. But we really want to hear from you and your communities that you work with and are part of on what you'd like to see in the toolkit, and give you the opportunity to also test and adapt the toolkit content by taking part in some of its development. So what does that look like? What do I mean by that? Well, there's two ways that you can get involved. We'd really like to get sort of the thoughts and inputs from a really wide range of the different community groups and organisations to really make sure that we're reflecting the diversity of Londoners. So you can either be involved in our community survey, which is a short 10-minute survey on Microsoft Forms. And I know there's numerous surveys, but so hopefully you'll forgive us for using just one more. But it's such a great way to get your insights and input. So it's a short survey. It can be shared with everyone and anyone. So feel free to sort of activate it in your networks, share it on as far and as wide as you'd like. And it's a mix of questions, sort of to gather thoughts, insights, suggestions, to really sort of capture what you'd like to see, what we've sort of, and give you an opportunity to reflect on some of the topics that we've sort of shared with you today. The other way to get involved is through a community focus group. Now, these will be about 45 minutes long. Sort of they can take place on either online or in person, depending on what works best for you. And we can really adapt those to be sort of focused on whatever might be more relevant to you and your community group, based sort of within the toolkit itself. So it doesn't necessarily have to be everything. It can be a particular point that you're interested in, or a particular focus, a particular template, things like that. And it's an opportunity to see more of the toolkit, and sort of the detail, as well as sort of testing templates, and sort of sharing more detailed thoughts. So be great to have you involved. A link to the survey will be put into the chat shortly, and it will also be shared after the call. And if you'd like to be involved in a focus group, you can register your interest within the survey as well, once you've hopefully completed it. And you can also reach out to us directly. We have an inbox, londonresilience@groundwork.org.uk, which will also be in the chat shortly.